Becoming a musician, and a well-rounded one at that, is a lifelong pursuit. And it's something that I've in no way finished doing, and I don't think it's something I'll ever finish doing. But in this series, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I focus on towards becoming a better and more well-rounded musician. In this video, I'm going to be talking about becoming the best advocate for the music that you're playing. The first thing I'd like to note is that it doesn't matter what piece I'm performing. It's not my job to have favorites. And I know it's really cliche to say, oh, well, the piece that I'm playing is always my favorite in the moment, but there is a huge element of truth to this. There are loads of pieces that I've performed where I've really struggled to be the best advocate for them. But at those times, I think it's most crucial for me to really dig deep and find something in the music that I love that I would like to convey to an audience. My answer to myself at times like this is that I'll never find out whether or not this piece is as good as anything written by Beethoven if I don't give it the same time of day. The second thing is something that goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Practice the music properly. Now, what that means specifically can be open to interpretation, depending on the piece, what instrument you play, if you're singing. But suffice it to say, it's always a very uncomfortable experience to perform a piece that you don't know well enough. It's uncomfortable for you, trust me, I've been there. And it's also uncomfortable for the audience. Point 3 is the part of becoming a better advocate for the music that you're playing that I think it's easiest for us to overlook. And it's knowledge. So Francis Bacon said that knowledge is power, and in this circumstance, he was absolutely right. And the more knowledge you arm yourself with, the more powerful you make yourself as a performer. Now, there are lots of different pathways through accumulating knowledge about a piece, but I'm going to take you through the 3 that I use most often. The first pathway that I find really interesting is biographic or contextual. This one is really fascinating to me, and it makes performing the work so much more enjoyable. This encompasses a lot of things, from what the composer was going through specifically in their own life during the time that they were writing the piece, as well as what was going on historically around them. Noting when, where, and if you can, why a piece was written allows you to better align yourself with the goals of that piece. Is it a celebration or a lamentation of something? How does the composer want the audience to feel when they listen to this piece? One of my favorite things to do is try and learn at least a little bit of the mother tongue of the composer that I'm working with. Now, I already love learning languages, so if that's not for you, that's totally fine. But I find this really helps me understand how they would have organized their thoughts. And I'm always really fascinated by how the sounds of their language compare with the sounds of the musical language of that piece. The second point is theory. Now, this might sound a bit dull, but this one is so important, and here's why. When you're a composer and you have all of these harmonic, rhythmic, melodic choices in front of you, what makes you choose the options that you end up choosing? Harmony is a really great example, and it's something that's really easy to overlook if, like me, you happen to play a primarily melodic instrument. Why did the composer choose chord X instead of Y or Z to end that phrase with? Well, to answer that question, I need to know what chords X, Y, and Z are. And only then can I make a decision about how special or not special that chord might be. And the third point is the composer's individual language. This last thing allows you to practice 2 of the most important skills that you will ever acquire as a musician: listening and thinking. I make a point of listening to as much of the composer's artistic output that doesn't pertain to my specific instrument as I can. For example, as a cellist, when I'm preparing a Mozart piano trio or a Mozart string quartet, I spend as much time as I possibly can listening to his symphonies and his operas. In doing this, I get a much broader sense of what a skilled dramatic writer Mozart was, far more than if I had only listened to his chamber works. Then, after listening, comes thinking. The trick here is to avoid getting stuck in our own individual lane as a performer and listen really intently to the language of the composer as a whole and not get stuck in our own specific idioms. So that's it. Keep in mind, this is what I do that works for me. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you do to become a better advocate for the music that you play.